Hello, and welcome to another episode of Phishing for Answers. Today, I'm here with Bill Genovese of Kyndryl. He is their CIO in charge of Quantum. What a fascinating role. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so just a clarification on the role, and no problem. I am officially in an organizational structure, a consulting partner. Okay, if you look at the Big Four or Accenture or some of the other technology consulting firms, they have various levels of practitioners. The highest level you can typically get is partner level. So you're driving a part of the service in a company for revenue. Okay, and I started with Kyndryl, where the CIO, as that acronym comes in, I'm not advising our CIO, nor am I the CIO of the company. Albeit, though, to what you said, which dovetails into the explanation of my role in alignment in terms of partner and what I'm driving. I am the global principal quantum leader. We are moving into quantum services and consulting to be driven by Kyndryl Consult, where I am a partner. Okay. And we have a number of consulting partners that we're working with on our team from different industry verticals on the quantum team to represent industry views. And my background, 30 years primarily working at the intersection of financial services and technology. Outside the U.S. for over a decade in 6 countries. Okay. And I always explain this in capital letters: living and working in these locations, not, parachute in for 2 weeks for a business meeting or fly back and forth for 3 months. This is, going in as a permanent resident with my family 6 times and completely immersing myself in the work and living culture. Okay, which has influenced me in my career, definitely in terms of benefits. Hasn't been easy. We'll get into some of those challenges, but and then I've been a 3 or 4 time CIO and CTO for startups and mid-tier companies, real estate, 2 blockchain companies. One of them was a digital asset exchange, and one was a venture starting a healthcare consortium that was taking distressed privatized healthcare facilities in China into public regional centers and using technology innovation, which was quite interesting. So,
Very cool. This might be a good place to put in the disclaimer that anything Bill says today is his own opinion and not that of Kyndryl. With that, talk maybe a little bit more, or tell us a little bit more about your background as it pertains to quantum.
yeah, number of companies that I've worked for got me exposed to it. I mean, and I did work for a major technology company in China. Okay, and the U.S. and the West has had some bumps back and forth with them over the years. Huawei Technologies in China, but in terms of seeing and experiencing so much technology and innovation under one roof. And I'm ex-IBM, second generation IBMer. Between me and my dad,
Wow, second generation, huh?
yeah, between me and my father, we spent nearly half a century with Big Blue. He was with IBM for 30 years. I was there 12 years. But even in comparison, Huawei had so many things going on that people were not aware of in 4 distinct divisions. Okay, they were like a conglomerate marketplace of technology: consumer, cloud, telco, where their how their origin and where they were born and bred. And I got exposed to quantum there first. I was with them 2016 to 20. About halfway through, my position there, they announced that they built a quantum simulator on their public cloud. Okay, so very similar to what the hyperscalers globally are doing now. Okay, and a quantum simulator basically you take your business problem and they will help you determine and assess whether quantum is the right solution set or technology over existing technology. So my role there was to drive and deliver industry strategy for global banking and financial services. for our customers. Okay. So I immediately saw that. Okay. And knowing the industry, I knew there was going to be some use cases to bring into quantum, i.e., portfolio optimization. So I worked very, very closely with that team and research and development and got exposed to it. At that same time, to accelerate my exposure and learning and enablement, I enrolled myself at my own investment in MIT Pro's Quantum Fundamentals course. It's a certification course, hands-on.
I
It's about,
looked at it actually, thought about doing it myself. So
no, I'm probably the strongest advocate on the planet for that. Half of our team in Kyndryl here, embarking on quantum, has been through that course on our own investment. Okay. It's probably the best value in terms of me opening up my wallet and not getting reimbursed by an employer. Okay. And saying it accelerated my skills in that space. It's a great holistic mix of algorithm development, cybersecurity, where it's impacting cyber use cases, and you're doing everything hands-on in terms of developing algorithms and labs in a low-code, no-code environment using IBM Qiskit. So really fascinating. And then, of course, you come out with the benefit of having the MIT badge. I mean, you're certified,
yeah,
so very, very interesting stuff. And I went through that program, and that helped me quite a bit, in terms of how long I've been working in this space. Back to those days, it's been about 5 or 6 years now. So one of the reasons I joined Kyndryl being ex-IBM company.
yeah.
I
Well, I was
worked
going to ask about that. They spun off out of IBM, right? Sort of.
IBM Global Technology Services, and I was a chief architect and engineer in that division. Okay, working with financial services clients, and part of the reason I came back into Kyndryl was to get into this space. Okay, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder that was putting together kind of a tiger team, which is a lot of tech companies do this. It's
Yeah,
not your day job, but the tech companies want to kind of test the market appetite. So they put together across the company teams of individuals that have background and skills in it, even though the company as a whole hasn't embarked down that path. So
yeah,
this goes about 3 years ago. This started. So we're beyond that point now, and we're developing go to market into this space. So and then of course I've just immersed myself in this technology, a number of industry consortiums, think tanks, working in this Cloud Security Alliance. They have a quantum safe working group. Okay. And we're putting together a post quantum encryption reference architecture across a number of participating companies, which is getting very overwhelmingly positive response. It's needed. Okay. Because echoes of Y2K, if we all remember that. Okay. And it was kind of a land grab for all technology companies, in terms of a market opportunity. Same thing, or not same, but similar here in the sense that US government saying it's going to cost $7.1 billion to remediate this encryption problem for enterprises across.
that might be a low number, honestly.
Yeah, but every cyber company and networking company is pivoting in the quantum safe direction now. Okay, but for the CISO and the CIOs and the CEOs that are out there, CTOs, who do I go with and who do I call based on where that company is in their new post quantum encryption that's available to me for remediation? What area of the stack? And right now, largely, I emphasize that again, most of these companies are recommending broadly remediate everything. Okay. And it's kind of an even playing field. So it's very, very chaotic and confusing. So the purpose of this reference architecture is to develop based on critical services that are ideally cross industry. Okay, so I'll pick on payments. I always do, because payments was the first one to leave financial services. Okay, i.e., AKA via Amazon and e-commerce. Okay,
Yeah.
so if there's going to be a decryption event, based on a quantum computer, you better damn well make sure that your payments service, regardless of what industry vertical you're in, that you swap out the encryption for payments first, right? Otherwise you're out of business if payments goes down. I mean, and you tell me, Josh, what's one industry today that's not using digital payments? I couldn't think of one. I mean,
No, I mean, it's everyone does it. I mean, yeah, wow, that could be an interesting. I guess I hadn't thought about it. I thought a lot about the nation state side of it, but you're right. There's millions of credit card numbers, bank account numbers, wiring instructions, all going across the wire every single day.
so
Interesting.
this
No,
type of asset and guidance, and then associated with that would be, a starting point ecosystem map. Okay, so for example, if you're looking to remediate payments or trading or credit card, or even other cross industry services, supply chain, okay, what have you, okay, who are the companies that have already started developing approved post quantum encryption for those services? And ideally, you're going to start with companies that are cyber companies that already issue certificates for payments, for billing, for credit card, because they're going to be first movers in terms of having to swap out the encryption in their native offerings. They have to, you
yeah,
know,
makes
you know.
sense.
So that's what the ecosystem map and the reference architecture will provide. So instead of a CISO or CIO panicking and saying, well, RSA is going to be deprecated in 4 years, 2030. Okay. And I know it represents 65% of my systems. I've got to get going on this, but how real is it that I'm going to be attacked by a quantum computer? Well, you can't wait till 2030 or till the day zero event. You've got to start planning now. But
I
if
mean,
you went,
we're getting closer. The news is ramping up around that. Just, I mean, it may not even wait until 2030.
yeah,
Um, I mean, we've got now all of a sudden a $3,000 supercomputer that can sit on your desk.
yeah.
It's not quantum, but how long before the equivalent is available to me? And I can connect that supercomputer to my new quantum computer that I also bought for $3,000 that sits on my desk. And that's when it gets dangerous.
Yeah, but I mean, at least in a pragmatic approach where, you can work with organizations and say, tell me your top three revenue generating services, okay, that are cross platform, cross network layer, cross application database. Okay. Companies know this, and, if you lost them, how much revenue would you lose in an hour? Okay. Then you start to decompose those services in terms of encryption vulnerabilities. Then you can put together, from a criticality perspective, an executable tactical plan, okay, that won't take half a decade and cost you billions of dollars. Okay. I mean, you can go out of this, you can go out this and shore up your vulnerability to keep you in business and keep generating
Yeah.
revenue. And then through crypto agility, okay, depending upon how you're classifying the services, my thoughts have always been around throughout my career. The framework I love is CIA, by ISACA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, because that brings from the valuation of a service these dimensions together, triangulated. Okay. And you can classify, even simply on a 3-point scale, services that are 111. Okay. But you know this as well as I do. A service may be one in terms of confidentiality, ultra private, SPI, PII, but there's variations in terms of exposure and integrity, data and transfer, and at rest. So some
Yeah.
services may be 123 or 121 or 111 based on integrity. Okay,
Yeah.
so that ties into the execution approach for migration for PQC, because you don't have to rip and replace everything for integrity. You can do encapsulation and step down. So, that's why I think it's a fantastic, there's other good frameworks out there. and security. But in terms of fit, the fit for purpose, this is a great way to look at PQC migration. And then I've worked extensively in availability, okay, and outages in banks around the world and what causes them. Okay. I worked in a SWAT team in IBM, High Availability Center of Competency for lab services and systems group, because clients sometimes they would experience mainframe outages. The mainframe doesn't go down. Okay. It's not a hardware failure. Okay. It's either application or human element. Okay. And so, I've been very deep in availability. So tying availability into this piece, CIA, in terms of encryption, same premise. I mean, if you get decrypted for a critical service, you better have failover and DR. You can't have a 113. I can't think of any scenarios in my career where a service was 113. You get unless it's in some type of vault. You get my point. But anyway,
Yes, I do. Absolutely. So, how do you expect that quantum is going to impact artificial intelligence?
it's my thesis again. I keep coming back to convergence. I worked in the blockchain space quite a bit. Okay, and I've always been a cautious skeptic on emerging tech. I've been passionate advocate as well. And blockchain was probably the first big light bulb that went off in my head in terms of passion. I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. But I looked at it skeptically because my early days working in ERP and seeing I built ERP systems, back in the 90s, client server base for revenue recognition. And when the ERP came, I was like, well, this is great. You can kind of take out large chunks of a function and integrate them together with application suite. Okay, so that premise, that architectural principle has stuck with me throughout my career. Integration and convergence, tying functions together for streamlining and control. Okay, and I saw that with blockchain too. But then I said, okay, going back to the thinking around ERP, how is this going to integrate into the existing systems in an enterprise? We still haven't really solved that problem with that technology. Okay. And really, and then the other aspect of it too is terms of automation. Okay. And AI. Okay. And there's some semblance of convergence there with blockchain with smart contracts. Okay. So there's a starting point there for automation for generating transaction registration on the blockchain based on the requirements of automation and AI that's in smart contracts. So I'm kind of leading to the answer here in the sense we're driving down the path of Gen AI. It's hitting the ceiling and walls in terms of capability. Okay, it's not sustainable to keep building Frankenstein's NVIDIA GPU data centers.
So, no, I actually I've looked a lot into that. I think the biggest issue and the biggest reason that we're running into the ceiling, if you will, aside from computing, is that we still haven't figured out the memory issue. And until they can remember stuff like a human would remember stuff, they can't work alongside us like a human would. And I think that's the reason that we haven't seen AI enter the workforce yet. But what do you think about these models that like China, this group out of China just, I want to say last week, it might have been the week prior, trained a model at 1/11th of the cost of the traditional models. And so it was able to do far more with far less. And we're seeing a lot more optimizations as, these new models come out. It doesn't take long for that next more optimized model to come out. So I do see the cost of it going way down. And as the cost goes down, that's because the efficiency is going up, meaning they're going to use less computing power. And I see a lot more edge AI as like the capabilities these days as well. And so I don't know, what's your thoughts around all of that?
Again, the thinking and the model development in AI and Gen AI and how the models are developed and evolved and optimized is based on a finite known set of input data parameters.
Yes.
Okay. And the keyword is train. Okay. Train and reinforce. Okay. If we're only taking the data that we're familiar with based on a certain set of circumstances and problems that we know exist, we're going to be limited by that thinking. Okay. Quantum opens that whole sphere up to the art of possibility. So, one of the ideas that I've been developing for a good 5 or 6 years now is a converged technology black and gray swan risk predictor using the convergence of quantum, AI, and blockchain. Okay, so we all know as humans to some extent what the term black swan. Then who's the author? Taleb had a trilogy of books on black swans. He's kind of the godfather of the term black swan, and these are really events that come around once a century that throw everybody upside down. Okay, it could be Wall Street crash. It could be global financial system crash. The event we had in 2008, COVID. Okay,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
we
COVID.
certainly didn't see that happen. The problem is, even if you build a model based on that singular once in a century event, okay, we're still falling into the trap of known data parameters, okay, and a finite set of training data. What the hell happens in the world if a black and gray swan converge or two black swan converges? Okay, so a real life example is a hurricane barreling up the east coast of the United States, Hurricane Sandy, and hitting New York City tri-state area. Okay, storm like that will never impact Wall Street. Okay, you know, and then you have kind of a triangulation of risk impact across markets, credit, and operational. Wall Street's flooded. Okay, not anticipated. Another example would be the convergence of COVID and a major regional war, Russia and the Ukraine. We can't handle multifaceted global events, nor can we predict them because we're patterned, and that's how we build technology based on silos and singular sets of training data. Okay, if you kind of converge quantum machine learning, okay, with the existing data set, okay, and kind of create an abstraction layer to widen the parameterization in terms of what if, and then constantly evolve that static set of training data with classical, widen the parameter. What if this happens now to that? What if this happens now to that? Okay, so that's basically the premise in terms of the convergence, and I kind of see where that's going.
Oh, I can see that being very helpful. I hadn't really thought about the blockchain application until now, but that makes perfect sense.
Well, the blockchain piece comes in terms of the single source of record.
Yeah,
Okay. So for example, in this
that's
risk,
the data in or the continuously updated input, right?
right. So once quantum through quantum machine learning finds a new risk event we haven't seen, either through convergence of risk events or higher impact. It could be a category 10 hurricane that's never hit our planet. Okay, and we're not prepared for that. We're only prepared for category 5. It then identifies the risk vectors across the triangulation and says, well, there's something here you need to record. Put that risk event in terms of a higher rating in the risk register and update your models. So then you put that risk register event in blockchain potentially, as an example. It could be a relational database. It could be, a
Well, I
cloud.
think the blockchain would be a great source for any data going in
Yeah,
to
yeah.
it. Because I mean, one of the cybersecurity issues around AI models is that model pollution from a nation state perspective or something like that, or model poisoning attacks, and so. I could see the blockchain completely getting rid of that. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe you can poison it, but we're going to know exactly what happened and have a complete unalterable record of everything that you did to do it, which would make it easier to remediate too.
Yeah,
So,
especially if that blockchain is quantum safe with the latest encryption.
yes. So let's talk about that.
Mhm.
Um, I've read the updated FIPS guidelines for encryption. I'm not convinced that that's quantum proof. What are your thoughts there, or is this too controversial? I don't know. What do you think?
It's still open to wide circles of debate. Okay, and I brought up the quantum safe, uh, blockchain for that reason. Okay, somebody a while ago um, put out a white paper and touted that their blockchain was quantum safe. Okay, and I immediately cocked my eyebrow when I heard that. The first thought in my mind was, is okay, well,
Right?
yeah, well, my first thought was, well, whose quantum computer did you test it on? Okay, to break it. What commercially available quantum computer, and then what was the modality, and what are the encryptions that you're assured that their quantum computer cannot break? So there's so many variables in place, and the Chinese government, for example, came out recently within the last 3 months using a D-Wave computer, Leap, touted that they broke RSA. Okay. The experts in the industry looked at this and said, well, based on a certain set of scenarios using that computer, it's true. But from a widespread, full stack perspective, everywhere where RSA is, no, it's not true.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's the same situation as we have going on now. Okay, and my premise and thought here is NIST has put out the 5 guidelines, okay, in terms of RSA, SHA-2, SHA-3, ECC, okay, the five big culprits in terms of digital signatures, okay, uh, encryption, and recommended these are the most vulnerable. Get going, okay, and here's what we recommend in terms of replacement for those. Are there going to be flaws in the replacement? Sure. Okay, but from a evolution perspective and scenario basis, and probably some logic behind to what I just mentioned, where are you getting the computer to break it? Okay, and looking at the landscape of modalities and who has them, okay, whether it's academia or commercial providers, and then trying to kind of assess, well, if somebody had access to these 7 computers with these modalities, what is the percentage chance that they're going to break this new PQC?
Yeah.
That's how I would approach it. I mean, you've got to go with kind of a known universe to think through this.
And to that, I really think that the biggest threat relies around the defense industrial base,
Mm-hmm.
far more than financial. Now, yes, okay, a nation state may have motives to disrupt us on a financial scale. So that absolutely has to be addressed as well. But I see that going after defense first because it's going to be governments that
Absolutely,
have this long before it's going to be individuals. Now, with that being
absolutely,
said, we have these ransomware groups or cybercrime gangs that are doing enough ransoms to generate the revenue of a CrowdStrike and with a fraction of the cost. So, what are the concerns that they get their hands on quantum and take it from more of a criminal perspective, carding and stealing stuff and whatnot?
yeah. The scenario I see there, and again, it ties back to what you said in terms of defense being the first interested point. Okay, and in terms of decryption, um, I think of the example of the major entity breaches, Marriott, Verizon. Okay, um, and my reaction to these is, well, gee, I'm a Marriott Wards member for 15 years. I work with Marriott, but I wake up every day and you get the notices that there's been a breach.
I'm
But you're
immune. I mean, I'm numb to them at this point. Are
Yeah,
you? Because I get a new one every week. It seems
yeah. I
like.
mean, but nothing happens. So you're waiting for the shoe to drop. Okay, but the problem is whoever stole the data can't decrypt it. Okay, so they're waiting for a way technology-wise, to have access to something that can decrypt it, i.e. quantum. Now, the ransomware groups may not have the wherewithal, either budget or security
A
restriction
lot of
or access.
intelligence too, and just,
Yeah,
the knowledge, I mean, to be able
yeah,
to build these. It's not like
yeah,
you can
but
just
that
buy one at the corner store.
right.
So,
But that's a monetization opportunity for bad actors in conjunction with nation states. Okay. If a nation state really doesn't have any violent intentions, okay, to disrupt the financial system or decrypt everything, but from an economic leverage perspective, they see value in that data in terms of gold, okay, they may
yeah.
pay a large amount of money to it and intersect academia and research to go decrypt it.
So
That's where the danger is. Okay, so yeah,
no, and I don't even think just academia and research. I think what we see with AI right now,
yeah,
uh, I am not convinced that a large percentage of the emails of the that we get reported every day, because I've got, millions of people with the report button installed through my company, and so I see all of these different emails being reported, or phishing emails being reported across a range of different industries. And many of these were clearly written by a large language model, because it went from, bad spelling to perfect grammar, and they're very well written. What I find interesting, though, is that I'm convinced that they're utilizing the paid models, and that's the thing. That's the thing about the way our market runs, is that yes, we have some guardrails on it, but for the most part, in the enterprise space, you can turn off the guardrails, and because many application use cases wouldn't allow it. And I'll give you one. We had to get with Google to turn off the guardrails on Gemini, because we were trying to run just a bunch of unknown content through it, particularly reported phishing emails. And so we were violating the terms of service constantly. And so I see that and think also, when quantum is made available to the public, or at least to the enterprise, I think we're going to see criminal organizations with fronts utilizing that technology too.
yeah, 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 correct.
So, how's quantum going to impact my everyday life?
Well, it's certainly not going to make your optimized cup of coffee every morning, I wouldn't think.
Damn it.
um, across a number of vectors. I mean, I see it kind of accelerating consumption of technology at the palm of our hand, okay, and making it more context ready, okay. One of the scenarios, and it's real today to a certain extent, you've got the interface between you and your bathroom mirror. Okay, smart mirrors. Those haven't come in vogue yet in terms of mass production, or your smart refrigerator, or
Yeah.
your smart auto console. The problem right now, from a sensor and interface perspective, it's pretty much all or nothing. Okay, right now, based on the model that's serving up that data. Okay. But in terms of personalization and what you want to see at various points in time on a custom basis, I see that as an impact that quantum can kind of help solve in conjunction with AI. Okay. And the other thing too, harder to kind of articulate this, but can quantum um, unbind the dependency of what I just said, okay, from software and hardware providers to produce that interface. Okay, and that's part of the problem. Okay, in the dilemma that I just said. So, if you look at your iPhone or Android device, what have you, the amount of content that's served up that you can touch and interact with is driven by the manufacturer, by Apple, Samsung, so on and so forth. Can there be an open standards based interface based on converged technologies
I
And
think
that,
we will see that. I mean, look at how open source is changing and
yep,
making AI just go rapid. Now we
yep.
don't see open source in the quantum space yet. I think being the key word there, but I'm very optimistic just because yes, AI, generative AI was almost entirely, an enterprise thing. But it wasn't that good. And the second it started getting really good is when it went to the masses as well.
Hmm.
Uh, and they're still just burning money.
Yep.
They're not making any money yet. But I mean, I'm optimistic there. So I would like to see it unbound as well, where we all have that
Yeah,
cap.
I mean, and then the manufacturers just tap into that open standards based highway,
Yeah,
and then they orient their interface for sales based on demographics or what have you. Okay, and they try to tailor the personalization into that highway based on the consumer demographics they're going after. But I mean, I see that as a major opportunity. That would be pretty wild. So
yeah, absolutely. Any cool new things happening in AI that you're excited about?
I just came off a webinar yesterday. It was a public webinar between Microsoft and a company that they're collaborating with, Atom Computing.
Okay, I haven't
And
heard.
yeah, and this was on Microsoft's further developments in quantum. And the big takeaway that I took away from that, which was really insightful and eye opening, is they kind of have a bimodal strategy with this. Okay, because you kind of wonder, are they trying, are these companies, the big three hyperscalers, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, you can kind of throw IBM in the mix, but they're more of a product company than cloud. But you kind of wonder, are they using Gen AI and quantum to drive cloud stickiness? Just bring everybody to their cloud, or is it a some type of additional growth driver for their overarching business strategy? Okay, and I came away from that session yesterday. It's overarching. Okay, so they're moving down the path of utility-based quantum computing from a software and hardware perspective, i.e., the collaboration with Atom, and Quantinium is another company they're collaborating with. But also they're opening up the tool chest, okay, and converging what they're driving revenue now with cloud. Okay, Copilot, Chat GPT, OpenAI,
Yeah.
and now they're developing something with Copilot that you can use to generate quantum programs. I was like, you got to be kidding me! This is
That's actually really cool.
I mean, you got, and now they have this other thing too called the Discovery Suite. So it's kind of like a developer marketplace for quantum tools. Okay, that converge with other adjacent technologies. Okay, and based on your problem, you go in the toolbox and you drive it and test it out. Okay. Now the backbone, I get it too. Okay. Well, how do you enable it? Well, this is great stuff. I want to use everything you're talking about, Bill. Okay, we'll sign up and you're a Microsoft Cloud customer. Okay, well, I get it. I mean, that stickiness, that enablement platform is not going to go away from cloud on prem, but you get
It's the nature of how the business works. They're
right,
always
right.
going to try and make it as
You know,
sticky as possible. So
but what I'm saying is that's the first example of an overarching ecosystem based strategy that's converging technologies that I've seen in this space.
yeah,
The other providers are either hardware bound, they're driving towards hardware. IBM, my former employer. Google came out with the Willow chip, but you've got to question, they're not using that to drive Google Cloud Platform revenue. They're probably, if I can
right.
surmise, if I could surmise, they saw what Copilot and Gen AI did to their search business, so they're revisiting, how can we re-anchor our search position? That's our core business strategy, right?
Okay.
So they're using quantum in that regard. They're not going to take. I can't see them taking Willow and going to sell semicon to all these companies. They're not a semicon company. Why did they come up with the Willow chip? Okay, you
Search.
know,
You're right. You're absolutely right.
and then Amazon. We just had a discussion on our team, it's like, well, what's Amazon's business strategy as a company? And again, I kind of pose this to our teams. You got to think of it in terms of the company's overall business strategy. It's not cloud first. Okay. And Amazon's approach is just like you interact with them on a daily basis. Pick up the Amazon app. If I want to buy toilet paper, I mean, I can order toilet paper from Amazon and have it tomorrow instead of getting in my car. Okay.
Places they actually have drone delivery now too. So
Yeah.
you can have
So
it today.
in terms of quantum, they have a marketplace of technology modalities for hardware providers. D-Wave's in there. Rigetti was in there. Okay. And we don't care about your use case. If we offer everything in our store, you're going to come to us. So it's different approaches here, but you kind of get my point. These companies are approaching the space differently in terms of emerging tech, but the ones that I think move the needle forward fastest are converging, where they're taking converging place. Yeah. So
Even in the AI space, we see convergence of different AI technologies becoming the new thing. I was looking this morning at a new AI tool where I can import any image. It will instantly create a 3D model off of it. I can move around these different 3D models on side of a canvas, and it instantly creates a high resolution photo off of the canvas that I've created. So you
then
can.
the next step, does a 3D print?
I guess in theory it could. I mean, you've got these things that turn any picture into a full 3D environment, and they're better in many cases than what we could do, with these massive teams before. So,
well, I'll give you a useful scenario there. I'm a car buff, so if I see a new model Range Rover driving down the street parked at my local dollar store, okay, for whatever reason, I'm going to take a selfie of that, the snapshot. I'm going to take that home, put it in that app, and then I'm going to try to print it.
I like it. I like where you're going with this. That's great. Well, we are just about out of time here. Any sort of final thoughts? I know we haven't really talked a whole lot about. We've talked a good bit about cybersecurity.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of summarized, nuggets or takeaways, that have helped me and resonated with me in my career and get me excited to wake up every day. Look for those watershed milestone moments in your career where you really can see things moving forward. Okay. And again, it's all about convergence across a number of dimensions. Okay. So, the convergence of the business and technology side for me has always looked for cost avoidance plays. Okay. And as technology providers, whether you're on the security side or application side or infrastructure, cloud, what have you, okay, companies delay moving forward on large scale investments, okay, digital transformation, cloud migration, what have you. Regulatory mandates from a business data model perspective, payments kicks the can down the road in terms of ISO 20022 from a data model perspective. Reason being is some of the payment providers, the banks have already conceded, well, they're not the central hub for payment. We lost that battle to PayPal, so I don't need to move forward. Where I'm getting at is, PQC, encryption, Basel was another example where there's such a big global event that happens that forces a compliance mandate. You can use that to drive modernization of systems that were delayed for other reasons, budget, politics, what have you. You can't skirt this encryption thing. Okay, it's only going to leave you vulnerable down the road one way, shape, or form. In terms of the timing and your impact, to be determined. Okay, but you got to do something about it. Okay, and so I look for these events that happen and latch on to them to weave together. Okay, decision analysis to move the ball forward. So that's pretty cool, and that's one takeaway. In conjunction with that, there's not too many things as a 30-year technology professional that make me excited. Blockchain was one. Okay, the internet certainly, and mobile devices was another. Okay, but the biggest one so far in my career is quantum. Okay.
Oh, quantum's very exciting. I mean, just continue, but I agree. Quantum is incredibly exciting, and we're seeing it happen in our lifetime. I didn't think we would be where we are by now. So, and we're way ahead of where we were predicted to be. So,
Yeah, I mean, and when you start thinking of the art of the possible of what quantum will open up with information consumption and optimized tailored information based on what you want, just to solve risk problems, to make our lives better. I can't even wrap my head around the possibilities. It's fascinating. So
the world is going to look very different in 10 years.
Well, I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old son, 2 boys. Okay. And the 5-year-old, we put him in pre-K. Okay. Because he wasn't speaking until he was about 3.5 or 4. Okay. He's now 5 and he speaks Spanish fluently. Okay. They're not teaching him Spanish in pre-K. He learned this from YouTube.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. Okay.
But besides the fact that for Christmas he sent my wife a $3,500 shopping list of toys he wanted from Amazon. This kid is 5.
3,500. I love it.
I mean, the next thing is he's going to hit the purchase button. I mean,
hey Alexa, buy me this.
That's what I'm saying. So you start wrapping in quantum to this equation, and my kids. I had a discussion on EVs with my 8-year-old. Because we saw an Amazon van that's powered by Rivian. They have Rivian vans now. They're electric, and my sons are enamored with the Cybertruck. Okay, and I had a discussion with my son, very, very deep. When you're old enough to drive, you may not be able to buy a vehicle. You won't need it. The car may pick you up at home, okay, and drive you where you need to go. And
I certainly don't think we'll be driving anymore. I mean, we're going to hit a point very soon where AI makes us safer than if we drove ourselves. So as soon as that hits, I think that's going to become the mandate because you're less.
Well, again, that's a training data problem now. We're self-driving cars creating accidents. Well, it's because it's being trained by a known set of parameters that we're experienced with.
Yep. But the more data we have, the smarter it gets.
Yeah, true.
Yep. And that means that the more accidents we have, the less likely we are to have.
Well, I mean, and I mentioned my sons, Josh, because I'm 60. My sons are 5 and 8. Okay, so father time is working against me. I'm very active with fitness and running and marathons and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to add years to my life. But all of this stuff we're talking about, in one way, shape, or form, I want to experience with my boys.
Well, they say we're going to surpass the longevity escape velocity sometime in the 2030s, which means you just got to make it another 6 years, 7 years, and they'll be able to print a new heart or whatever. Cool. But I think that quantum will have a huge impact on that if we are able to get there. It won't be without quantum.
Yep.
Well, hey,
great
discussion. Thank you so much. It's been a fabulous episode. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great day.